Let us be united in prayer. Almighty and everlasting God, grace us with your presence, with your love and understanding as we gather here tonight. Guide our thoughts, words, and hearts, now and always. May we always turn to you for hope and unyielding faith, reaffirming that holy power which made this nation a light to the whole world. Make every moment of every hour of our lives a living and growing experience. Grant that we may be like-minded one towards another. Let us acknowledge you in all our ways, and we know that you will direct our paths. We thank you for your countless blessings, loving kindnesses, and tender guidance. To those whom we honor here tonight, it is said, an honor won is a promise of more. Here's to your fine accomplishments. May it lead to even greater success for you. Amen.
Once again, good evening and welcome to the first of the State of Wisconsin Fire and Police Hall of Fame induction banquet. Before we get started with the welcomes and the induction this evening, we'd like to make mention of the board of directors here, Tab Matheson, and he's going to speak on the, if you have your program here, pertaining to the back cover here about the supporting the Fire and Police Museum. Tab?
I was asked to just say a few words. We're kind of running ahead of schedule here, so I'd like to explain the selection process, how we chose the firefighters and police officers for the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure if everybody understands the process, but what we do is we send out a bunch of nominations and get the word out in newsletters and go to conventions and ask people if they know somebody from their department that they think is worthy to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. And the whole idea started was, you know, why should somebody have to die in the line of duty? You know, they should be recognized for some of the things that they have done. Well, we've collected nominations throughout the state, and we felt the fairest way to pick these people to be nominated is to have selectors from throughout the state. And what we do is we have people chosen, and we collect the nominations and send them down to those people. They look through all the nominations, and on their own, they don't get together as a group. They rate the nominations on a score of 1 to 10 of who they think should be in the Hall of Fame. And then they send the nominations back to us, and we tally up the scores, and that's how we decide who is nominated. So if you're wondering how people get nominated, we try to make it as fair as possible, and we're very happy that we're doing this tonight, it being the first one. Also, I don't know if you had seen our donation board that we have out there. We are in the process of redoing our old firehouse and police museum, and that is where the Hall of Fame is going to be at. We'd like to restore the building to what it looked like when it was originally built 100 years ago, which is why we picked this year as the induction, for our first induction. If you would like to get a membership, it is on the back of your program. To be on the board outside, you have to be at the captain status or higher. Also, we have a fire bear out there. I don't know if anybody noticed as they walked in. We are selling tickets for that. They're $10 a piece, and we're only selling one deck of cards. And the proceeds that we make off that go towards the Hall of Fame. So sometime between after the induction, during the dance sometime, if you'd like to purchase a ticket, somebody will be at the table, or you can get a hold of me and I'll get a ticket for you. Thank you.
And at the head table this evening, we will have Margaret Saccone, Mayor Superior, and her husband Fred. Mayor, would you like to come up and say a few words as well?
Good evening. This is sure a quiet group. You were here a little bit before I got here. I just rode into town late and got ready and came down, so I expected to hear people chattering, but maybe it's because you just got full from dinner and you're kind of just letting it settle down. But I'm here to welcome you to the first annual induction for the Police and Fire Hall of Fame. The old firehouse and police museum located at 402 23rd Avenue East was designated as the location for the official State of Wisconsin Fire and Police Hall of Fame. The idea behind the Fire and Police Hall of Fame is to recognize heroic deeds performed by these dedicated people. We feel it is time for police and fire members to be officially recognized in Wisconsin for their heroic deeds. This designation was made possible with the help of Senator Bob Jauch, Representative Frank Boyle, the support of fire and police departments throughout the state of Wisconsin, and a group of very dedicated local citizens, firefighters, and officers. There are some names that pop to my mind since I have been in office. I know that Tad has been on my doorstep many times saying, what can we do? How can we make this work? And each time he comes to me, we try to find another answer. We have payroll deduction for our employees. They have sent out letters throughout the state. I did some traveling and went to a couple of places, and I would bring back those flyers for Tad to look at. He brings them back to the board. They look at it. And they're working very hard to find a way to make sure that this is something that the whole state can be proud of. And I know with the kind of determination that this board has, that is going to be a reality. Some other names are Lenny Rouse has been out in the fire hall, and I think he is the person who has kept it going all the years when the city was not taking care of the building. There's no heat in it at the present time. We're going to get that this year. But there's a lot of things that were going out there, happening out there, that needed some help and support from the community, and it was all done by volunteers. We're hoping to give them some more help in the upcoming years as far as we've done some point tucking, repairing the outside of the building. We're putting in heat. The windows have been replaced. They've put on new doors on the front of the fire hall. It's really shaping up, and if you have not had an opportunity to see it, please make sure that you make a visit to our Police and Fire Hall Museum as well as the Hall of Fame before you leave Superior. Belita Scott and her husband Ken Grimes have been working very, very hard. They are citizens from our community. They are also fire engine buffs. I think if you want to know something about a fire engine or fire apparatus, they could probably help you with that. So those are, I know I'm not hitting everybody, but those are the people that I see on a regular basis that are lobbying to make sure that this is a reality, and I'm only more than happy to help with it because I think it's a great addition to our city, and I think it's long past due for recognition in the state of Wisconsin. So welcome, have a great time. It's okay to talk and laugh. It's okay to be noisy. Have a great time.
Thank you, Mayor Saccone.
There, now we can all relax. I would like to introduce to you Frank Boyle, State Representative, and his wife, Kate, at the head table. Would you like to say a few words?
Got notes and everything. This is going to be bad. And I'm followed by Bob Jauch, for Pete's sake. You think you're going to be here a while? Have a Snickers. Going to be a while. It's a pleasure, truly, to be here tonight. And Doug Finn's here. And I say, Doug, I got my own reading glasses now. I don't have to borrow yours. I finally realized in my old age that I could no longer read what I wanted to read. So at a dedication at the courthouse a couple of months ago, I had to ask if anybody had reading glasses. And Doug volunteered his, and so I got my own. It's a pleasure to be here. And I must say that it's been 6 years now since then Mayor Herb Bergson and a number of folks at the head table approached Senator Bob Jauch and myself. And we spoke quite candidly about the tremendous need to recognize the tremendous commitment in human service and the ultimate commitment that law enforcement and firefighters have made to this state. And we both agreed that in every way, from a local perspective, a statewide perspective, and from their suggestion of designating the old fire hall here in East End as a memorial for firefighters and law enforcement across this state, made a whole lot of sense to us. And we drafted a bill. And Bob and I had companion bills. I sponsored it in the Assembly. It was exactly the same language. It expedites the process of legislating. And I did the same in the Assembly. But the timing couldn't have been more perfect because another legislator, Marlon Schneider, from Wisconsin Rapids, together with his firefighters, had the same idea. And they proposed that the memorial and a Hall of Fame be located in Wisconsin Rapids. So Marlon Schneider and I reached an agreement, together with Bob Jalk and the firefighters, to designate the old Superior East End, the oldest fire department in the state, as the fitting Hall of Fame memorial for firefighters and law enforcement. Wisconsin Rapids became the memorial for firefighters alone in the state of Wisconsin. That's essentially what they wanted, and that's what we wanted. And the bill passed. The governor signed it on April 30th, 96. A lot has transpired since then in terms of focusing what I think is much needed attention to the tremendous sacrifice that law enforcement officers and firefighters have made to the citizens of this state. And I think it's absolutely imperative that we be here tonight to honor those individuals who have committed and dedicated unselfishly so much of their lives and the families that accompanied them in allowing them to do that.
Thank you to State Representative Frank Boyle.
Now I'd like to welcome as well on the head table a gentleman who's probably going to have a longer story of how he got here this evening than anybody here, State Senator Bob Jalk right now.
Following Frank, if you introduce me as one who has a longer story, it will empty the room. Asking Frank if he wants to say a few words is like asking the Pope if he'd like to give a prayer. And Frank proceeds to give a speech in several languages as well. Every day, the people of Wisconsin owe the police and firemen and their families who support the duty and service of each of you who work for police and fire departments so much for putting yourself in harm's way and promoting the public good. We don't do enough in society, nearly enough, to say thank you for what you do every day of your lives to protect our property, to promote our security, and to provide security for our streets. No issue in society means more than protecting the security of our communities. Nothing is more important to us as family members than protecting our personal possessions, our home, and making sure that our families are safe. And it is to the police and fire that we owe the ultimate thank you for what you do. Tonight's induction, the first induction to the Wisconsin Police and Fire and Police Hall of Fame, indeed recognizes the special contributions of a few individuals who have performed heroic and significant acts of bravery on behalf of the people of Wisconsin. But it is on behalf of every man and woman who serves that this induction takes place. As Leonard Rouse indicated in his remarks in the paper, that you all work as a team, and that not one firefighter can be considered the sole individual who performs an act of bravery. I mean, somebody had to drive the truck, somebody had to hook up the hose and operate the equipment and provide the support and provide the training. The families provide the support and the nurturement. If we need to do this tonight to begin to recognize that we should list every police and firefighter and say thank you for what you do to protect our lives and promote a better way of life here in Wisconsin. So that tonight, as we identify the names of these special individuals, it is on behalf of every firefighter and every police officer who have served that we say thanks. And Frank is right that you are taken for granted way too often. Too many people think that it's just enough to pat you on the back and say thanks for service and provide some support to a Police and Firefighters Hall of Fame. It did take considerable time to get the legislation passed, but it didn't take as long to get the legislation passed for the Police and Fire Hall of Fame as it did for my legislation to pass to assure that State Patrol are issued bulletproof vests. It took a year for the state of Wisconsin to come to its senses and pass a piece of legislation that would require that the state of Wisconsin issue a bulletproof vest for each of their State Patrol officers.
Thank you, Senator Jog.
And now I'd like to introduce Tad Matheson, President of the Fire and Police Hall of Fame, and his wife, Mary.
Next on the head table is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Fire and Police Hall of Fame, Dave Johnson, and his wife, Jill.
And Vice President of the Fire and Police Hall of Fame, Ed Lambert.
Others I'd like to recognize this evening in the audience include the Superior Fire Chief, Steve Gutler.
The Superior Police Chief, Mark Diamond.
Douglas County Sheriff Larry McDonald.
Fifth District Vice President, International Association of Firefighters, Charlie Buss.
President of the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin, Mark Zier.
And Executive Board Member, Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin, Dave Wenzel.
That brings us to the point of the evening where we'd like to get the inductees into the Fire and Police Hall of Fame of the state of Wisconsin. At first, we'd like to recognize Herb Bergson.
When I left office, this whole thing could have fallen apart, but I want to make sure and recognize and thank Mayor Saccone for her pledged support. It certainly is appreciated, and it promises that the Police and Fire Hall of Fame and Museum will continue with city support. That's great. And I want to thank Frank and Bob seriously for all the help they've given us, as well as to the police officers and firefighters around the state. They are two real good friends to the unions. I told the board that when I came onto the committee and this whole idea came about back about 6 years ago, I guess, that there was only one thing I wanted to do, and that was when this Hall of Fame came to happening, that I could have a chance to tell a story. And that story is about a really unique individual who sent me a letter and woke me up. And I hope you can bear with me. I want to read the letter. This letter was sent to me back in, I believe, late '91. It says, "Dear Mr. Mayor, my reason for writing this letter to you is to make a request for recognition for policemen who have sacrificed their lives in the line of duty. I am not asking for a costly memorial. Most police stations I have visited have a plaque with the officers' names engraved below and placed in a prominent area of the beautiful new city building where visitors would pause to read it, thereby knowing that a slain officer wasn't just buried and then forgotten thereafter. I am sure that the officers you have now would also appreciate this act if approved, to know that in the future, anything of this nature may happen again, that they too would be remembered for their bravery. I think too many years have passed, and I have always hoped that the day would arrive when I might see that my father would receive that his most deserving gift for the most precious gift he could give, and that was his life. Thank you in advance for any effort you may exert on the subject. See, we didn't have even a granite stone to commemorate the police officers who died in the line of duty, and there are 5 of them. It really woke me up, and I should have been smarter than that. I felt ashamed because I was a police officer for 10 years before I was elected mayor myself. I asked now retired Police Sergeant Brayman, Bill Brayman, to assist, and eventually his son got on board and helped. And eventually, just 2 years later, we dedicated that stone. In City Hall, it's in front of the police desk area. Well, we dedicated it in 1994, but the man who sent me the request wasn't healthy enough to attend, so we had to videotape it for him. He did get to see the ceremony, but on videotape. Well, I visited him a short time after that. He was in the hospital down in Madison. And, you know, he could tell some good stories that would make anyone laugh. He was a character. He was 75 years old at the time, and he told a story. He used to deliver papers in Superior's North End, and he had the district that included all of the bordellos. And he told me a story that I laughed so hard at, I laughed till I cried. He had delivered papers for so long, and they owed him a lengthy bill. And he says, Herb, he says, I went into this one place, and I was only kidding. He was 12 years old at the time. He says, I was only kidding, but I suggested that maybe we work out a deal of some kind. He says, she chased me out with a broom. Then there was the story that he told me, and I hadn't heard it until then. He told me the story of that bullet that night. Vince was 2 years old, and his dad went to work one night. He was a beat cop, Finley Beaton. And he heard an explosion in the old Kinney Meat Market. That's where Hold Insurance is now. And he walked to the scene, turned the corner, and there was a waiting lookout with a gun. He shot and killed Finley Beaton. Well, when you leave a wife and 2 small children, I guess it's hard for the children to understand why Daddy isn't coming home anymore. And the family tells me that they called him Papa. And for months and even years, they said that Vincent asked where Papa had gone. Well, time passed, and Vince's mother took ill. Vince used to say she eventually died of loneliness. He'd say that she was in so much pain, she was so deathly ill that he used to hear her crying out for him on his way home from school. And as a child, he and his brother cared for their mother until she died when Vince was 12. His older brother died just a few years later of tuberculosis because they were living in boxcars and in back alleys and trash cans and eating garbage. But they got by, and that's the real incredible story about all this, how a 2-year-old kid survived all that. Because that bullet didn't just take his dad. It took his mother, and it took his brother. So later in life, he met a fine woman by the name of Helen. And they were married an extremely short time later. I guess they only dated, I was told, for about a week or a month. It wasn't very long, was it, Helen? 2 weeks. But she said he was a flirt, so she waited the extra week. She had to be sure. And they had 3 fine children, Ron and Greg and Andrea. Andrea lives in Texas. She couldn't be here tonight. And they had children, 11 of them, 11 grandchildren, 3 of which are here tonight. It was John, Christina, and Aaron, and 4 great-grandchildren. And in 1994, when Vince died, he left all of that behind. But he died a year after, finally, his dad was recognized for what he had done. But his dream, his passion in life was to recognize heroes, the kind of hero his dad was. And he always said, you shouldn't have to die to be a hero. And although tonight we're honoring 2 heroes posthumously, There are 5 who live to tell their story, and I think that's wonderful because you shouldn't have to die to be a hero. And although we're honoring 5 firefighters, a deputy who gave his life for a small child, and certainly Len Rouse, senior that is, and it's a shame he couldn't be here tonight. We honor all those people, but the fact that we're here tonight is a tribute. It's a tribute to a 76-year-old man who still had the heart of a 2-year-old kid, who was robbed of his childhood, but managed to see that this all happened. I only wish he could be here tonight. And I'm sorry I got a little emotional, but he became quite a good friend. I would ask now that the family of Finley Beaton and another hero, Vince Beaton, please come forward.
Our second nomination, the induction here at the Fire and Police Hall of Fame. I'd like to get Rick Sen presenting the award to Mike Johnson and Leonard Rouse Jr. Was on the night of February 2nd, 1979, tested the entire fire department to the fullest. When the first engine pulled up to the old Armory apartment building, flames were coming out of several third-floor windows. At least 22 of the apartments were occupied, and it seemed as if no one outside, but there was no one outside yet.
Crews evacuated people from the first floor and raised several ladders to rescue people from the other 2 floors. 2 tenants even climbed down the inside of a ladder from a 3rd-floor apartment to escape the heat and smoke. A cry for help led firefighter Leonard Rouse to the back of the apartment building, where he got a boost up to the fire escape to look for a man who was reported to still be inside.
Firefighter Rouse entered a broken window on the 2nd floor and climbed through the heat and blinding smoke to make a search of the apartment. He found the unconscious man and began to bring him over to the window. Before firefighter Rouse was able to complete his rescue, his mask ran out of air and he had to leave.
After firefighter Rouse left, firefighter Mike Johnson entered through the same window and with great effort was able to get the man outside to awaiting help. Richardson was taken to the hospital and recovered from his burns and smoke inhalation.
And this time, Rick Sen would like to present the second induction to Mike Johnson and Leonard Rouse Jr.
Thank you. That scream for help came from my wonderful wife who wasn't able to attend tonight. She had an emergency surgery this afternoon. She so wanted to be here. She sends her apologies to Michael and Lenny. We were kind of hoping that this would kind of be a little bit of a closure for us after 20 years and also a new beginning. We're really, really proud of these 2 gentlemen. And once again, gentlemen, thank you for saving my life. The plaque reads, this plaque is proudly presented to Captain Mike Johnson for his heroic action and life rescue of Richard Senn on a real nasty evening, February 2nd, 1979. And this one reads, this plaque is proudly presented to Assistant Chief Leonard Rose, Jr. for his heroic action and life rescue of Richard Senn on that really nasty night of February 2nd, 1979. Let's really get behind this Hall of Fame. It truly is a bright moment for our city. Thanks.
Our next induction in the Hall of Fame is for Richard Parquette, the Bayfield County Sheriff's Department.
A 28-year veteran of law enforcement, having served his last 17 years in Bayfield County, Corporal Parquette received his final call on Tuesday, September 17, 1996. Corporal Parquette received a call for vandalism. He immediately drove to the scene of the complaint, then was led up a set of stairs by an unknown girl. On his way up the stairs, Corporal Parquette was shot 30 times. His murderer then went back into his apartment and killed himself.
No motive was ever discovered for this brutal act. Corporal Parquette left behind a widow, Ms. R.L. Parquette, and 2 daughters, Tracy Brewer and Terry Smith, and a stepson, Stephen Prevost. While there are no witnesses to the shooting, many believe he gave his life protecting the young girl, whom was not physically injured in the attack. His fellow officers all agreed that he would have repeated his actions even if he knew the outcome. This time, presenting the Richard Parquette family, the induction to the Hall of Fame, is Sheriff Richard Fredericks.
Tracy. 2 years ago, Tracy lost her father. I lost a fellow officer and a good friend. But because of the efforts put forth by you people, the memory of that father and that officer will never be forgotten. And for that I say thank you.
Robert Potter of the Superior Fire Department. On 2 occasions, firefighter Potter played a key role in rescuing babies from their burning homes. The first event occurred November 1st, 1978, when his crew responded to a house fire. They were the second crew to arrive and were told that an 8-year-old boy may still be in the house. Firefighter Potter followed the first engine's hose line up the stairs and told the crew about the boy, and then went into a bedroom and, knowing not to completely rely on what you were told, did a very thorough search.
His search included a crib where he found a small baby. He brought 8-month-old Jennifer to another firefighter on a waiting ladder. Firefighter Potter then went back to continue searching for the missing boy. And while doing his search, he found a second crib, which also had a baby in it. He brought 6-month-old Heather to the safety of the ladder as well. The missing boy was safe, having been found later at a neighbor's house.
2 years later, just before noon, on Christmas Eve of 1980, firefighter Potter's engine company responded to a house fire. They encountered a man and a young girl outside. There was smoke coming from the eaves of the house, and he was told that there was a baby in a crib upstairs. Neighbors had already tried to rescue the baby, but were quickly pushed out by the heat and smoke. Potter and his partner pulled a hose line up the stairs to the landing below the second floor, where they encountered heavy smoke.
Just as he was about to get his air mask on, he heard the baby's cries from somewhere upstairs. Knowing that time was quickly running out, he left his hose line, but did not put on his mask and followed the baby's cries through the blinding smoke. He found 5-month-old Dominique and carried her downstairs and then outside, where she was taken by an ambulance to a local hospital, where she fully recovered from her injuries.
At this time, the presenter, Bruce Smith, and Robert Potter, please.
This plaque is proudly presented to Robert Potter for his heroic actions and life rescues of Dominique Gordon on December 24th, 1980, and Heather Jo Grice and Jennifer Saby on November 1st, 1978.
The next inductee is Calvin Phillips of the Oshkosh Fire Department.
Firefighter Phillips achieved Hall of Fame status through Lifetime Achievement in the Fire Service. He served 41 years with the Oshkosh Fire Department, the last 12 as chief, retiring in 1989. Firefighter Phillips has instructed thousands in the fire service on topics such as fire investigation, fire science, arson investigation, officers training, and much more.
Phillips has also co-authored 2 textbooks entitled Investigating the Fire Ground, and his lifetime of work dedicated to educating his fellow firefighters is exemplary and has certainly opened the eyes of many of his students and fellow workers. The dedication of people like Firefighter Phillips provide the rest of us with the tools and knowledge that make firefighters throughout the world respected by everyone. I get John Gee to present the award to Calvin Phillips.
That isn't all he done. He hired me, too, so. This plaque is proudly presented to Calvin Phillips for his leadership, development, and commitment to the fire service in the state of Wisconsin.
Next inductee from the Manitowoc Fire Department, Jeff Keene.
On the night of May 12, 1995, while responding to a house fire, the crews were told that a person was still inside the burning home. Firefighter Keene risked his own life to search the second floor for a child trapped by fire in her home. Entry into the home by the main floor was impossible due to a large amount of fire, which had the stairway completely blocked.
Firefighter Keenan climbed a ladder to enter the second floor to search for the missing girl in an area directly above the fire. He had to withstand extreme heat and danger of the floor collapsing below him. After finding the unconscious girl, he carried her to the ladder and brought her outside. He then continued to battle the blaze until it was brought under control.
Tragically, the young girl was not able to survive the ordeal, but was given the best chance possible by the selfless and courageous actions of Firefighter Keene.
And to present Jeff Keene with the award is Greg Cadow.
As I say, it's a great honor tonight to present this award to Jeff. Captain Kunish, who nominated him for the award, could not be here tonight, but he asked me if I could read this letter.
I am sorry that I cannot be here today. I wish I could share this experience with Jeff. I would first like to applaud the efforts of the Superior firefighters for the work that they have done to make today possible. The Fire Museum and Fire and Police Hall of Fame are efforts that should be recognized. I am proud to have submitted Jeff Kean and have him inducted into the Fire and Police Hall of Fame. He, in my view, truly is the role model firefighter that we need to recognize. In my 26 years of experience in the fire service, I have never been so impressed with the action that Jeff took at the fire on May 12th. Not only the task Jeff performed, but how he executed it was truly an act of bravery. It has been said that all firefighters and police officers are heroes every day. I recall a New York City firefighter who was receiving an award for bravery and commended that the bravest thing I do every day is pin on my badge. After that, it is all part of the job. These statements may be true, but when I observed Jeff reach the top of the ladder at that fire, he never paused, he never hesitated, and he never faltered. I believe and hope that all firefighters would enter a room totally engulfed in flames to perform a rescue, but some may hesitate for just a second. Jeff did not, and for this I will forever have a tremendous amount of respect for him as a firefighter, as a father, a husband, and as a man. Congratulations, Jeff. This plaque is proudly presented to firefighter Jeff Kehan for his heroic action and bravery on the night of May 12, 1995.
The past couple months I've been talking to Tad a lot on the phone about the whole event, and I'd just like to say I'm honored to be here. I'd like to congratulate all the other inductees here tonight. Tad came over before we started our meal and said if you want to say a few words, go ahead. So just like Frank, I couldn't refuse. I might be the one standing up here with the plaque in my hand tonight, but like the other gentleman said, the rescue didn't happen. It didn't happen without all the members of our fire department that night. There's two other members that made the trip up here with me tonight, Ron Van Oss and firefighter Cotto, who are also at the fire. It's not the guy. Any member of our fire department, if they would have been at the bottom of that ladder, would have been up just as fast as I would and would have done the same thing without thinking, without hesitating. So I'd like to accept this for all the members of our department, not just me because I was up there, but for all the members. They were out fighting the fire down below me, giving me a chance to get up there and giving that girl a chance. The real hero that night was the little girl that we attempted to save. When the fire started, she was on the first floor of her house, and her brother was sleeping upstairs. It was about 11:30 at night, so she went upstairs to wake her brother. When she woke her brother up, they couldn't get back down the stairs because of the amount of fire. They went over to her brother's window. He jumped. He couldn't get her to jump, so he jumped first, hoping that she would follow. She never jumped. They could hear her at the window. They tried to coax her out, but she didn't jump. When I eventually found her, she was curled up on her brother's bed, so she probably felt safe there. She was awarded Carnegie Medal of Heroism. It's a very prestigious award. She was the youngest person ever to be giving the award. As you can see, it's very hard for me to stand up here tonight and talk about it. I've stood in front of a couple of groups now and talked about it, and it never gets easier. It was really hot up here, hotter than it was at the fire that night. So I'd like to accept this award. She was a real hero that night. She did our job. She went in and saved her brother, and she did our job. So for her, I'd like to accept this also. And I'd also like to accept this for our families, for all of our families, all firefighters, all police officers. Like he said, when we go out that door, it may sound like a cliche. They don't know if we're coming back or not, but
it could be your day. So for all those people, I'd like to accept this award.
And now we have a special memorial plaque. And the presenter would be
Nick Baker to the Rouse family.
I was asked to say a few words about Leonard, and I find it very hard to say a few words about Leonard. I spent a lot of time with the man, and first of all, I have to give you, everybody seems to have credentials here. I have to give my credentials here. I'm what you call a fire hall brat. My father was on the fire hall. I slept in fire halls, used to play in fire halls, and chased out of fire halls quite a few times. And then I got older, and I got involved in a little boat that's down at the end of the island here, SS Meteor. And a lot of people in this community helped us. And Leonard was one of those people that came out and helped us. Leonard Rouse Sr. is a retired sheet metal worker. As a matter of fact, he helped us develop one of our displays at the ship on the history of the shipyards, and especially during World War II. He had a great deal, he's a community activist. He was involved in a lot of things. And one time I came up with the idea that we buy a fire truck known as the Little Mac. It was one that my father was a captain on. And Leonard was one of the #1 people that backed me on it. And my children grew up with a fire truck. They went to parades all summer long and stuff like that and had that enjoyment. And I just found out last month my middle son is going to training in Duluth as a fireman. So I guess it runs in the family. He grew up in a fire hall too, so I guess he wants to be involved in it. In the 1980s, the Superior City decided to build new fire halls. And a lot of us were talking, as we do down at the ship, and saying, geez, it's too bad we can't save some of these, or one of these things. Leonard said, we can do that. We can save one of these fire halls. And I remember I got a call one day. He said, Nick, get a big truck. He says, I need you at 6th Street Fire Hall, which I remember sleeping many times at. And we came up there and we loaded a whole big truck full of stuff that was left in the 6th Street Fire Hall. And we headed down and stored it at the ship. At the time, he's telling me, he said, look around this building. Why don't we save this one? And I said, Leonard, how could we ever fill this one? And of course, from my business end, I said, it's out of the way. Well, he says, well, let's take a look at East End one. Well, he says, this is going to be, he says, we'll go for the East End, but it's going to be too small. And I said, Leonard, how are we going to fill this thing up? Well, Leonard took care of it. There were 2 men in town that quivered every time he came into a fire hall. John Rayflab, chief at the time, and of course Steve Gutler when he became fire chief. There was actually some body searches made when Leonard would leave the fire hall because everybody wondered what Leonard took. We did have a few items. My job was he would tell me what to go and when to pick it up and stuff. He had stuff. He cleaned out the city-county complex. I don't know what was left in that building when we emptied out the city-county complex with all the old communication system that the Superior Police Department had. And so Leonard wanted it, and he got it, and we delivered. We had a few items, though, repossessed from the fire. The Superior Fire Department did come over and repossess some of the items we had. He says, no, you cannot have that one. We want it back. We may need that. One of the things that at the time we were trying to think about honoring Leonard years ago, and some of you people are aware of it, and we wanted to do something that would make him feel, honored for what he had done. And there was only one thing we could think of, and thanks to, I believe Gary Carino came up with a hat. But we got a fire hat. I brought it up to the high school where I teach, and I had the opportunity to get one of the teachers to print his name on it. And of course, he had to be fire chief because he was our chief. And I remember Jill Johnson, who sits down here, she was my manager, and she remembers when Leonard called up and he wanted something done at the fire hall. It was done. There were no arguments. And he was a great guy. And I know what the rule was at your home because he ruled me too. And you were out of line. You heard about it real quick. And he was a great guy. And I would like to present, there is a whole contingent. This is a big group here. There is one thing that I did not mention, and I should. There was one thing more important than all of the things that I've mentioned to Leonard, and that was a little lady called Lorraine. And I remember to him that everything had to stop because Lorraine needed him. And those things were number one in his retirement years. And so if the family would please come up, I would give you the plaque here. In memory of Leonard L. Rouse, April 18, 1914 to June 23, 1997. A leader in organizing and developing the old firehouse and police museum, his vision and dedication will always be appreciated. And this plaque will be mounted in the fire hall.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Rouse family, I appreciate this nice memorial that you presented this evening. And my father was dedicated to the city of Superior and preserving the history of the protective services. My dad took a liking to the police and firefighters, probably because of my involvement in the fire service. But he really was, like Nick said, he was the guy that would go around and mooch and get this and get that. And thank goodness for his efforts that the museum is what it is today. And I thank each and every one of you for attending this evening. Our family is very proud of Leonard L. Rouse, and we hope that his memory will always be in our hearts, and as it will be posted in the museum. And we give you great thanks for helping us celebrate this evening. Thank you.
On a note that was given to me earlier this evening is a clipping from either the magazine that was part of the industry, but it's entitled, "Remember Me, I Haven't Forgotten You." No, I haven't forgotten the excitement of riding on a fire rig, lights flashing, siren wailing, or the feeling of a good save, whether it be a human life or the valued possessions of a fellow citizen. I haven't forgotten the feeling of standing ankle deep in freezing water on a 30 below January night, gloves frozen to the nozzle, fighting a fire I know was caused by a carelessness or worse. I haven't forgotten terror of being lost in a smoke-filled building, feeling the increased heat of the fire working its way through my turnout gear, nor the taste of a hot cup of coffee and a cold meatloaf sandwich at 4 in the morning. Now I walk into the old fire station only to find it filled with strangers. I may not walk as fast or stand as straight as you. My hair may be gray and thin, and my jokes don't come as easy as they once did, but I know in my heart I have paid the price and I have earned the right to say proudly, I am a retired firefighter.